Okay, wonderful. Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Lynn Poland. I am the founder of the Walk of Hope, New Jersey. I am also a 4-year Resolve volunteer and support group host, certified integrative fertility coach, co-founder of Kindred Beginnings, a family building support community. And I am the author of Creating Me, a customizable interactive children's book series for parents to explain conception through assisted reproductive technology. I am so thrilled, honored, privileged, and excited to announce and introduce Megan Hanson, co-founder and president of the Recurrent Pregnancy Loss Association. Megan, welcome. Thank you so much for volunteering your time to be with us today for this really informative workshop. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. No, thank you so much for having me. All right, well, I will, I'll go ahead and get sharing here. So, yeah, Lynn, thank you so much. Happy National Infertility Awareness Week. I'm really grateful that Resolve started this movement, and I'm really, I'm honored that you asked me to be able to present today. I also want to say that while I'm really excited to be here, I'm really sorry to anybody who is watching this right now or who will eventually watch the recording of this, because if you are watching in person or recorded, it probably means that you or somebody that you love dearly has had multiple pregnancy losses, and that is really hard. So I just want to thank you for being here and for listening, and know that I am thinking about you. So I wanted to start just by, now it's not, my slides are not moving forward, so give me just one second. There we go. I wanted to start by just giving everybody a little bit of background about who I am, so you know sort of who you're listening to. So I am a Chicago girl, born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago, but I currently live in Seattle with my husband, Ben, who you see right there, and our 2 fur babies. So that's my cat, Louie, and my dog, Clover. Funny story, actually, this is a total aside, but as I was doing it this morning, my dog has elbow dysplasia. And so we're starting to have to give her injections to like care for her joints. And when the vet was explaining to me that like we would have to be doing these injections at home, they were like, you know, some people are really uncomfortable with this. And I was like, oh, no. I got it. It's going to be okay. I'm good with needles at this point.
So you just can't escape it, you know, like it follows you.
I was like, I'm on it. I'm a pro. I know how to switch the tips and everything, and got my boxes of alcohol. So to tell you a little bit about my story, my husband and I have been trying to build our family since 2015. It's been quite a while now. And on our path to parenthood, we have had several miscarriages. So we conceived 2 pregnancies naturally early on in our journey, and lost both of those. Then we tried for a year to get pregnant and couldn't. And so eventually sought the help of a fertility specialist. And when we started working with fertility experts, we got pregnant again twice naturally. Unfortunately, lost both of those. And then decided to move on to IVF. And so we went through the egg retrieval process. We did 2 frozen transfers. Those transfers were successful, but ultimately each one of those ended in a loss. And so the point that we're at in our journey right now is that we are pursuing parenthood through gestational surrogacy. So I'm happy to talk more about that at the end if there's questions. It obviously, as everybody knows, it has been one of the most heartbreaking and harrowing experiences of our life. And the most frustrating part for us was the fact that doctors just really could not tell us why we kept losing pregnancies. So we had what was called unexplained recurrent pregnancy loss, which meant that there was no clear underlying health condition that could be identified that was causing this. And that's really what caused my husband and myself to start Recurrent Pregnancy Loss Association, which is a nonprofit organization that's aimed at supporting other families who are going through this, and also funding research into causes and treatments for recurrent miscarriage. And I'll talk more about the organization at the end. So when you and I sat down to talk about whether, like, what I should present here, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I'd love to talk about it. I'll talk about all the things I wish I'd known before. I went through this journey, and I like made the flyer and sent it. And then I was like, oh man, what have I learned? Now I have to think of something really profound to say. And I'm not sure I have it. But my husband and I talked about it, and we came up with 6 things. So six things for to represent each of our 6 losses, but 6 things that we either wish that we had known or that we needed to hear as we were going through this journey. And so those 6 things are, first, that recurrent miscarriage is more than bad luck, that I had a lot less control over the outcomes of my pregnancies than I thought that I had. Grief is a completely overwhelming feeling, but it does not stay that way forever. I did not have to go through this alone. I really needed to focus on supporting my marriage as well as myself. And lastly, becoming resolved is a real thing. And I didn't believe that for a really long time. So I'm going to take each one of these in turn and just kind of talk about why this is something I wish I'd known or needed to hear. And I'll go a little bit more in depth. So the first one, recurrent miscarriage is more than bad luck. So I think that probably many of you, if you have had multiple losses, the first time that you lost a pregnancy, probably heard something along the lines of, we're so sorry. Unfortunately, miscarriage is a common occurrence. Most likely this happened because there was something chromosomally wrong with the embryo. There was nothing you could have done about it. The pregnancy wasn't going to be able to continue. The best thing that you can do is just try again. And many of us maybe even heard that after our second loss. And that's true. It is true that most pregnancy losses are a result of chromosomal abnormalities. But what's also true is that the more that happens, the less likely it is that that's the cause of your losses. So if you think about it, those like random mutations that happen in cell division, that's like a bad roll of the dice. But if you think about that happening over and over and over again, like the more that you roll the same number of dice in a row, like it gets less likely that that's what's going on. There might be something else that's causing your losses. So I put this slide up here and talk through it because you deserve to get a full evaluation for what's going on with your health so that you and your doctors can chart a path forward. So in addition to random mutations that might happen as cells divide, you could end up with a chromosomally abnormal pregnancy because of egg quality or sperm quality. And that's something that you can talk through with your doctor of like what you can do to manage that. And then there are also a whole bunch of other reasons that you may be losing pregnancies that are chromosomally normal based on your underlying genetics, your uterine anatomy, hormonal or endocrine issues that might be going on, autoimmune conditions that may be underlying. And that's something that if you're getting a full RPL workup, you'll be able to identify if any of those things are happening and then treat them so that you can move forward more successfully and hopefully prevent future losses. And then the reality is, and I have to own the reality because that's where I lived, is that there's a lot of cases where this is unexplained. And if you're sitting in that bucket, my heart goes out to you. It is extremely frustrating. And a lot of times it will involve medicines and procedures and pain and trying again. I hesitate to say because it always frustrated me when people would say it, but like the good news is that even after multiple miscarriages, the likelihood that a next pregnancy will be successful is always higher than the likelihood that you'll lose it. But being able to kind of continue to take that risk is heavy, and I get that. But I want to just go back to, this is not bad luck. I truly believe that there is more going on in most cases, and you should feel empowered to continue to ask your doctor to help figure this out and move you forward successfully.
And Megan, what I hear you saying is really, we talk about this all the time, we need to advocate for ourselves.
Absolutely.
We can't just accept bad luck, unexplained, and that might be the case, but we need to keep advocating and asking the right questions and asking our doctors to run these tests.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. And if your doctor is not listening to you, you know, might be time to find another doctor. So actually, one of our board members this Wednesday, I'll be going live with one of our board members who is a fertility doctor up at CCRM Boston. And she and I are going to talk like in-depth hour, trying to get into all the nitty-gritties about that doctor-patient relationship and when it works well and when it doesn't work well. So yeah, you have to find a doctor that's really willing to work with you to achieve your specific goals. The next thing that I needed to hear, I think this is not one that I wish I'd known before, but one that I needed to hear over and over and over again is, this is not your fault. You have a lot less control over the outcomes of your pregnancies than you think you do. And the reason I say this is because like it can be absolutely crazy making. So Lynn, I don't know about you, but like I did all the things, right? I took all the vitamins, I cut out dairy, I cut out gluten, I lost 10% of my body weight because it was supposed to help my sugar. I was doing acupuncture, I was doing yoga, and I was trying to make myself like the perfect vessel to house a baby. And it made me insane. And that is not, I want to be very clear, because that's not to say that like being mindful and eating healthy and exercising regularly, like those are all things that are good for you that we should be doing because it's important to be like a healthy human. But doing those things or not doing those things are not going to be the reason that you miscarry or don't miscarry. You did not lose your pregnancy because you drank that cup of coffee or had that glass of wine or climbed up that hill too fast or told your best friend when you really thought that you should have waited for 12 weeks. Like you did not, those things were not the reason why this happened. It's so easy to focus on them because it feels like those are the things that we can control in our lives. And going through this process, there's so much that we can't control that we become fixated on those few things that we feel like we can get right. But at the end of the day, infertility is a disease, and there's a lot about it that you can't control. And so it's hard, right? It's hard to not feel in control, but I say that because I think there's so much guilt involved in this, and I want to help alleviate some of that burden of guilt.
The one that sticks out for me on this list, Megan, is the last one,
right?
That you are not meant to be a mother, because that is not the case
at all.
Sometimes we feel that way. I did whatever when I was 17, and so this is the universe telling me that this is not in the cards for me.
Exactly. Maybe God doesn't think I'd be a good mother. I mean, like that was just such a constant refrain, and it's like, nope, that's not the thing that's happening here either. Which leads me to what you're feeling is totally normal. So grief, the overarching experience with recurrent pregnancy loss and with infertility is one of grief, and grief is messy. So and grief is personal. Like we all go through this our own way in our own time. So if you are feeling really sad, that's okay. If you're feeling angry or envious, really envious, that's fine too. Props to anybody that recognizes that little clip on the top of this image. That is a screenshot of a Garfunkel and Oates video called Pregnant Women Are Smug. And no joke, that was like my personal anthem for probably 2 years. I watched that video so many times. It like came up in my searches when I was like, personal anthem. There was for me a lot of frustration and irritation and envy, obviously a lot of sadness. But the other thing that I want to say is if you're not feeling anything, if you are a little bit apathetic to your losses, if you are just ready to move on and put them behind you, that's okay too. There's no way that you're supposed to feel after any of this happens. And if you feel one way after one loss and another way after another loss, that's okay. There's truly no right way to do this. I also want to own though that trauma is very real. So there was a UK study that came out last year which talked about the number of women who experience PTSD and anxiety and depression in the immediate aftermath of pregnancy losses, but a number of women that were experiencing these symptoms up to 9 months after a loss. And so, know yourself and trust yourself. It is okay to ask for help if you need extra help to support you through these times. What you're feeling is valid, and that hurt is real, and it's okay to deal with it.
It's empowering to ask for help. It's scary. And then once you have it and you have this wonderful support system, you're like, oh my goodness, why didn't I do this sooner?
Totally. Yeah, I agree. And that's a good point. Like I started working with my current therapist probably when I was, 3 years in, and I had had another one, but it wasn't like, when you find that right team member to help you work through the grief, it really is empowering, and they can help move you through the process with a lot more ease. Which leads me to this one, which is one I wish I had known and needed to hear, which is that you are not alone. And it feels like it, but it is not true. So maybe surprising, I don't know, because I'm okay being on video, but I'm on video here. There's nobody in the room with me. I'm actually a huge introvert, and I get really, really nervous meeting new people. So I did not want to go to support groups. They were offered to me. I had nurses and doctors that offered, said, hey, there are these support groups if you want to attend. I was like, heck no, there is no way I'm going to spill my guts to a bunch of strangers. Absolutely not. In the past year and a half, I have been talking to a lot more people that have gone through recurrent pregnancy loss, gone through infertility. And the only thing I can say about that is I wish that I could go back to myself 6 years ago and encourage myself to reach out earlier, because I spent so much time feeling like there was nobody in my life that could relate to me and understand what I was going through, and feeling like I was alone on a desert island when there was this incredible community that was available to me that I wasn't taking advantage of. So I truly did think it was like that picture in the top left that's like, I'm sorry, I can't carry your shit right now. I've got my own, and I don't want to hold any space for you. And I think when you can get over that just a little bit, it ends up that those other people help carry your load, and it really doesn't feel as heavy as it did. So I gotta love to my introverts. If that is just a terrifying experience, I understand that. I still encourage you to get one-on-one support, either with a fertility coach like Lynn, a therapist, a grief doula. But if you are wanting to be a little braver than I was, I also really encourage peer-to-peer support groups and fertility membership communities and things like that, because I think that they can help you feel connected in a different way.
And offer hope.
Yes, absolutely. The other, this is one that I wish I had been told earlier. So this is another one that if I could go back 6 years and talk to myself then, I do think that, and I think that this is really common, but I was at risk of sacrificing my marriage for the sake of having a child. And that wasn't the picture that I had of the future either. So I needed to do a lot more active management of my partnership and my marriage than I anticipated. And part of that is because people just really grieve differently. So actually our couples counselor gave us this Kaleidoscope of Grief pretty early on, and I love it because up until then, it was the 5 stages of grief, and you move through them linearly, and that is just not how it works. So I love this kaleidoscope because it says, feelings. I love the middle too. Feelings and thoughts like these come and go in no particular order. You can be in a lot of different places on this map, and sometimes 2 or 3 simultaneously, and your partner might be in completely different bubbles. So, for for my husband and myself, like I was always really just deeply, deeply sad after our losses. And he was too, but I stayed sad longer. And he was like in a little bit of a let me help and fix it mode. But the fact that he wasn't as sad as I was and that he wasn't like mirroring that for me, I interpreted as a lack of caring when it wasn't that way at all. Like he was, you know, trying to get out of the pain by distracting, by helping me. He was always, you know, okay, let's focus on the future. Let's move forward, when I was sitting in that like anger and guilt place for a lot longer. And so we had to really learn to communicate about our different experiences so that we could interpret them, interpret each other better, and make sure that we were moving through this process together, even if we were moving through it slightly differently. So couples therapy. And then the last thing that I will say that I didn't really believe is that there is resolution to this process. So I will never be the person that says, oh, don't worry, it's all going to work out, because I don't believe that that's true. And it certainly isn't going to work out the way that you imagined it was going to work out. But what I firmly believe is that you can find resolution, and actually the way that resolve defines it down here. You can achieve that feeling of empowerment with the choice that you make to move forward with your family. And so, you know, for anybody that's struggling with infertility or going through recurrent pregnancy loss, I very much hope that you have the baby or babies that you are desiring. And I also believe that if that doesn't happen, you will still be able to come to peace and figure out how to move forward that's best for your family. And that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that your pain disappears. Healing from this takes a lot of time. And so know that, you know, I'm empowered, and I feel very good about our decision to move forward with gestational surrogacy. That doesn't mean that all of the pain from the prior part of this experience has disappeared. And so I want to own that both of those things are true. It lives in that middle.
We so often say, you know, anybody that's watching this, that's part of this community, plan A didn't work. None of us would be here. Plan A worked. So some of us are, you know, and if you're on plan B and you found all of this, kudos to you. But some of us are on plan Z, plan double D, plan double E, right? Yeah. And so I love underneath here how you have, but it might not look the way you imagined it. Yeah. And that's okay. One day when you resolve in whatever way that you resolve, and I say this and I mean it, it will all sort of kind of make sense. You'll be like, okay, yeah. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I kind of understand why I needed to go through all of it. It doesn't mean that you accept it and that you're okay with it. You're still going to have to work through a lot of those feelings and that trauma, because it is a trauma. We do have to heal that trauma. But it will start to kind of sort of make sense.
No, absolutely. So those are my kind of 6 things. I'm going to take just a few minutes, Lynn, to just tell you really quickly about Recurrent Pregnancy Loss Association, and then I'll open it up to questions. So Recurrent Pregnancy Loss Association, or RPLA, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that my husband and I co-founded. And this is our mission. It's really threefold. So eliminating recurrent pregnancy loss through the advancement of research into causes and treatments, providing support and resources to those affected, and increasing awareness of the impact of miscarriage and fertility challenges on women and families. And so we do, with those 3 parts of our mission, we do sort of 3 buckets of activities. So education and events. So we've been running an Instagram live series where we kind of deep dive with fertility doctors or other specialists on particular aspects of recurrent pregnancy loss. And those recordings are all on our Instagram page and also on our website. And like I said, we've got one coming up this Wednesday night with Dr. Reinick from CCRSM Boston, where we'll be talking about patient-provider relationship. We also later this year will be starting a virtual peer-to-peer support group for recurrent pregnancy loss specifically. So if you join our mailing list or if you follow us on social media, you can stay tuned about when those start up. We also have sort of our science programming. And so that's really two pieces right now. We provide actual research grants or funding to doctors and scientists who are researching recurrent pregnancy loss, either the causes of them or treatments for it. And also later this year, we will be launching a patient registry, which a patient registry is like basically just a big database of information. But because the underlying causes of recurrent pregnancy loss are so varied, it becomes really difficult for any one clinic to find like enough people that are the same, air quote, same, to be able to study like what works and what doesn't work. So if you can have like a larger database of a lot of different people's information, you can start to really find similar groups and identify, oh, this protocol is actually effective for people that have, you know, this underlying type of situation happening. And so a patient registry can be a really powerful tool in accelerating research. So again, join our mailing list or follow us and stay tuned about that. And then the last piece, advocacy and awareness. So our PLA is an official Advocacy Day community partner. And I really encourage anybody listening to participate in that. Last year is the first year that I was an advocate on Advocacy Day, and it was far and away one of the most empowering parts of my journey. And that's about it. You can contact me. My email's up there, megan@rplassociation.org. That's the website for the organization. If you want to read more about my personal experience, I do blog about it. I'm still actively blogging at misbehavinguterus.com.
I love that name.
Yeah, that's my little Misbehaving Uterus behind. This was actually the post that I did for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day last year. So releasing my 6 little lanterns into the ether. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. I think, I don't know, Lynn, if it's like how many people are on, but I would also just say, you know, this is kind of the first of these talks that I've given. So I'm also, if you don't have questions, I'm also happy to take feedback if there are other things you think I should have talked about or wish I had dug into more.
Yeah, we have a few people on, and Chrissy is telling me we can use the Q&A feature or the chat for questions.
Oh, okay. Here, let me end my show here so that I can see all of that. All right.
Anyone have any questions for Megan?
Comments?
Any comments? Yes, we have one. Have you had chemical pregnancy losses or just miscarriages?
So chemical pregnancy losses, meaning like a loss before it was. So when they talk about like, there's actually a whole continuum of definitions, which I think matter very little when you're talking about the emotional experience, but do matter from the medical perspective. So when people say chemical pregnancy or a biochemical pregnancy, it's usually a pregnancy where you've had a positive at-home pregnancy test, but before the phase at which it would have been seen on an ultrasound by a doctor in an office. I did not have biochemical pregnancy losses. I probably some of my losses might have been considered them because they were early, but but the point at which those happened, I was working with fertility specialists. And so I was getting evaluated so frequently. So they were all confirmed pregnancies via ultrasound. I think I had always progressed past that sort of like 6-week mark. But all of my losses were first trimester losses. I never had a second trimester loss or a later term loss.
You know, that term chemical pregnancy to me, it's just such like a technicality. A loss is a loss, right? Like It doesn't matter if a loss is 2 days, if a loss is 2 months, if a loss is 20 weeks. Like a loss is a loss, and the feelings that come with it.
My understanding of it is that the reason that this is the reason that doctors put definitions around everything, is that different things are happening at the development of an embryo at different phases. So there's like a set of developmental things that are happening in that kind of 0 to 6 week mark. There's another set of things that are happening in that like 6 to 9 week mark, and then 9 to 12 weeks, and then beyond into the other trimesters. And so because of like what's actually just happening in development, the potential underlying causes of losses might vary. So if you're like always losing a pregnancy in that exact same window, that might be informative to your care team. So it matters sort of from like a medical perspective, but I 100% agree with you, Lynn, that like from a personal perspective, it does not matter when it happened, what type of loss. It as soon as you have a positive pregnancy test on that pee stick, like, and it doesn't progress, it is a loss. It does not matter at what point you lost your pregnancy. It still can feel however it feels for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you bring up a really great point, though, where, if you're losing at the same time, perhaps it's your body's way of telling you something is wrong, and maybe the medical team can perhaps pinpoint it. So that's a really great point that I hadn't thought of before. And Brianna just said, I would agree. I hate the medical terminology at times.
I actually saw there was like some, I think Peanut, if you guys follow them on Instagram, they're coming up with like a whole new dictionary of terms that are more like, I don't know, positive ways to talk about some of these things. So I'm into that movement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't look like there are any other questions, Megan. We have from Brianna, great job, Megan. Thank you for all you are doing, such great information. And from Laura, no question, but thank you for the information. It is really helpful. Yeah, so thank you so much for your time, your energy. And, Megan has volunteered her time to be with us today. Jackie said, thank you. This was a great presentation. I think you're giving a lot of really wonderful information to the community. Great support too. Megan can be found Recurrent Pregnancy Loss Association. So please reach out to her. She's a nice lady, very friendly. We just crossed paths not all that long ago, and we connected immediately. That's what happens, right? When you're in this community, you come across such wonderful people. So thanks, Megan. I'm going to
thank you for all the work that you do for the community, because you've been sort of, you've done a lot over a number of years to support people on their family building journey. So I really thank you.
Oh my goodness. And thank you for saying that. Absolutely. Yeah. It's about turning your pain into a purpose, and that's exactly what I'm doing, and you're doing the same. So thank you for what you're doing for your community. And thank you to everybody who participated live today. I know that the recording is gonna take off. A lot of people asked me about it. So thank you. Please share about Recurrent Pregnancy Loss Association. You can also, still for the Walk of Hope New Jersey, we are running 7 virtual free educational workshops throughout the week. I am running one tonight for family and friends. So if you have family and friends that just kind of don't get it, they're kind of in that innocent ignorance place, please have them join tonight. And the Walk of Hope New Jersey, we're still accepting donations to benefit Resolve. You can find us at our Walk of Hope New Jersey website, and the link is down there. So thank you all very much.